Well, good morning, everyone. As we have people jump on the call, Nick, I'm just double checking. You can hear me, my audio, right?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Well, so I just want to welcome everyone. How many people have planted a garden this week? Raise your hands. There you go, Guy. Power washed. How many people have power washed in the last 3 weeks? No one? Cleaned out a closet? Added to your Goodwill pile. That seems to be a predominant activity. Yes, I have too as well, Nick. I wanted to thank everyone for joining us today, and also just wanted to introduce my moderators, Nick Norby and Aaron Fleming, who will be moderating both the Zoom call as well as Facebook Live. So I just wanted to say good morning to everyone and welcome to episode number 3 of Facebook Friday with John L. Scott Real Estate. Our third generation owner, Lennox Scott, was recently ranked number 25 of the Swanepoel 2020 Power 200 as one of the most powerful and influential leaders in residential real estate brokerage. John L. Scott was founded just under 90 years ago and is located on the West Coast in Washington, California, Oregon, and Idaho. With 100 franchise company owned and 110 franchise and company owned offices, and ranked the 15th largest real estate franchise brokerage in the country. Our franchise owners, agents, and brokers are all collectively circled around our company's leading core value of living life as a contribution. Facebook Fridays is our opportunity to hear direct from outstanding thought leaders, both in and outside of the real estate industry, who exemplify excellence in business, contribution to others, and innovation. So this week, that outstanding person is none other than Mr. Howard Behar, retired president of Starbucks North America, as well as founding president of Starbucks International. During Howard's tenure as president, he helped grow Starbucks from a mid-sized little coffee chain of 28 locations to over 15,000 stores spanning over 5 continents. And if that's not enough, Howard also has served until he retired as board member for Starbucks for 12 years. And then Howard is largely engaged with the University of Washington Foundation, the UW Business School Mentoring Program, and trustee for the Sherry Leigh Biller Family Foundation. So Howard is a successful author of 2 books, Not About the Coffee and The Magic Cup. Howard is a longtime advocate of servant leadership model, and leading and the art of leading with purpose in business and in life. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Howard Behar to Facebook Fridays with John L. Scott. Good morning, Howard.
Thanks, James.
Where are you sheltering?
I'm trying to figure out who the hell you're talking about with all that.
Exactly. Well, we're talking about you, and the list goes on, but I had to be selective. So I appreciate you joining us today. Howard, tell everyone where you are right now. So we, in the Pacific Northwest, I mean, we have nice weather today, but it'll change tomorrow. Tell everyone where you are right now.
I'm sitting in it's 100 degrees right now, and I'm in Palm Springs.
Oh, wow.
I'll be headed towards the pool after this. And at 4 o'clock, after I feed my dogs dinner, I pour myself a gin and tonic and just sit out there and look at the mountains. It's nice. I'm very grateful. I think about all the people that can't put food on the table right now, or they're struggling with all this stuff. And here I sit, and so it's a humbling experience.
Yeah, well, we sure do appreciate you joining us today. And I mean, we are excited to hear a little bit about your thoughts on a lot of stuff, including obviously what we're going through now. So Howard, your book, Not About the Coffee, really? I mean, you're talking to a company that was founded in the Seattle area. Explain how it's not about the coffee.
Well, it's exactly the same as your business. It's not about selling houses, is it? It's not about real estate. It's what the real estate and the homes do for the people that you're serving. And that's the same at Starbucks. We weren't in the coffee business serving people, but we're in the people business serving coffee. And it sounds like a small play on words, but it's incredibly important because words matter. And that's what really drove the company, is that we just focused on that. And I mean, there were 20, when I started at Starbucks, there were 21 other coffee companies that actually had way more stores than we did in the United States. And most of them were focusing on the coffee and not focusing on the people. And we just shifted it. Didn't mean we didn't, want to improve the coffee. We did. But coffee was our art. It was our music. But what really counted was our people, because we knew that was what was going to grow the business. Couldn't be any other way. And that's exactly the same, I think, at John L. Scott.
Yes, absolutely. But you drink coffee, right?
Absolutely. My whole life. Yeah, every morning I start with 2 triple tall Americanos. By that time I'm almost invisible. So
that sounds like 6 cups, not 2, correct?
Yeah, it actually is 6 cups.
Well, so for our owners, culture is so paramount. And yet, with the move to mobile for everything, creating a dynamic office culture seems so elusive. Our offices are starting to actually look like a Starbucks in so many ways, especially our new ones, as they have a chance to kind of set them up from the get-go. What's your thoughts on creating a dynamic culture in this changing environment? You've talked a lot about culture with Starbucks and where you start and where you focus, but obviously, as our industry continues to change, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, let's define what culture means. That it's a big buzzword. It's been around. We all talk culture. But if you think about it, for those of you that have families or significant others, children, you have a culture in your home, don't you?
Yeah.
So is that intentional or not? Are you just letting it happen, or are you trying to have a certain kind of family? What are the things that matter in your family? What are the values that matter? What are the things that bring your family closer together? What are the words that you use in your family? What are the words that you use with your children? What do you use with your spouse or significant other? How do you communicate? How do you say I love you to each person? Is it I love you from the back door? Honey, I love you, see you later. Or is it, honey, I love you face to face? And when you're looking at your kids and talking to your kids, what's the communication with your kids like? Is it supportive? Is it building confidence, or is it putting them down? Is it finding all the things that are wrong with them? That's exactly the same thing that goes on in a business. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And you have to be conscious about that. And that's what builds a culture. The culture is built by the values that you have, how those values turn from words into actions, and how they reinforce those actions every day. And, the most important value is trust. Without it, no relationship works, no family works, no business works, nothing works, no relationship with your customers work. If I don't trust you as a real estate representing me, then how can we have a relationship? We can't, can we? So everything we do is to build trust, and that's what culture is about. So without a conscious effort to build the kind of culture you want, then it doesn't work. Now, we all know organizations that don't have that kind of positive culture, that are abusive. We know families where one of the parents or one of the spouses is abusive, and we see what kind of culture that family has, and we see it in companies too. If we think about the Microsoft of old, with Ballmer and Gates at the helm, as brilliant as they were, their culture was not a very productive culture, and that's why they lost 15 years of results. And look what's happened. They put in a guy that's been with the company, but he had the right idea for culture, what he wanted to build. He wanted to build it around the people. Now everybody wants to go back to work at Microsoft, where they're all leaving beforehand. And, it just makes such a huge difference.
Yeah. So you've been known to say the person who sweeps the floor should choose the broom.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that for our group here today?
Sure. Well, all of you're all running organizations at some level, from small groups to larger groups. Well, so you've hired people, or people have joined your organizations, and you have to when you talk about the person who sweeps the floor that should choose the broom, what I really mean by that is you hire those people, and instead of telling them what they can't do, you tell them what they can do and how they can be productive in the company. what their goal should be. And then if they see that, hey, if I want to have maybe you want, you know, at a Starbucks store, you know, sweeping the floors is important. Clean stores are important, or you guys aren't coming back. And so what person knows better what broom to choose than the person who does the work? And that's the same in your organizations. You know, you have reps maybe that are salespeople that report to you, or other people that report to you. And so you hire them, you've got to trust them to do the right thing until they prove that they're unworthy. So I always believe in giving trust before you get trust. It doesn't mean you don't tell them give them the expectations and what the goals are for them in the organization. But then you have to trust them until they prove they're not worthy of trust. And then when that happens, then what do? You step in and you coach them when they need coaching. So the idea behind it was, if you hire great people, then give them the room to do great jobs. You know, companies like Starbucks, you know, hiring tens of thousands of people all the time, hundreds of thousands of people. You know, you bring them into the organization, and you know, you got to give them space, and then you got to trust them. And if they come to you at a Starbucks, I'll give you an example. So when I was at Starbucks for about a year, a young woman who was a district manager in Southern California came to me. Her name was Dina Campion, and she asked me to come visit her in Southern California. And so I went down to visit her, and we went on a tour of the few Starbucks stores we had at the time, and a competitor's store, a company named Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf was one of them. Yeah. And she bought me a drink in Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, and it happened to be a product that they called Ice Blended at the time. And she said to me, you know, we need to have a product like this in our stores. And so Dina was one of those people that she knew what her goals were: to increase the business, to serve the people we call customers, and to serve her people. And so this was part of increasing the business and serving those people we call customers. And she said, can we test something like this? And so I said, well, let me take it back to Seattle and we'll test it. You know, I'll talk to the head of marketing, head of product development, and let's see what happens. So I brought it back. I brought the idea back, and I had the numbers. And she told me that we could increase sales by probably 30 drinks a day per store. Well, that was significant for us. You know, that was a big deal. And these were full of ice, so there was high margins, you know, in this little drink. Yep. And so I brought it back, and I sat down with the people, and I showed them the numbers. And I said, I think we should test this. Well, the head of marketing got up and said, I appreciate Dina's ideas, but we're in the coffee business. We're not going to do something like that. And he said, do you want me to call Dina, or you want to call Dina? And I called Dina back. I said, you're going to be disappointed, but right now there's no support for this. So about a month later, Dina called me up again. She said, Howard, can you come down again? And I said, Dina, what is it that you want? She says, well, you know, I want to show you something. I said, is it about that beverage that you want to show me? Yes, it is. Well, you know, Dina, you know what the answer is, you know, so let's give it some more time. She says, please come on down. I said, I won't make a special trip, but I have to be down there in about a month to look at some real estate in San Diego. So I'll come visit you then. So I showed up at the appropriate time at the Santa Monica store, 3rd Street Promenade, which was a big store for Starbucks. And she asked me to go sit down those days we only had high tables with bar stools, you know. We didn't have any chairs. Right. And so I went and sat down, and she brought me 3 little sample cups, and she said, try these. So I took a sample out of each of the cups, and I said, Dina, this tastes remarkably like that drink we had at Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. I said, are you trying to get me fired? She said, no, and she smiled, and she said, Howard, please let us try this. We're getting customers walking out of our store every day. And you know, because we don't have a product like this. So Dina and her broom, right? She had the idea of what to do, and this beverage was basically her broom. She was trying to choose a broom to sweep the floor, so to speak, only this happened to be a beverage. So, you know, this is one of the times, as all leaders have to do from time to time, you know, you had to make a decision. Do I go against the flow of the organization, or do I just stay with the flow? And I decided to go against the flow of the organization. And I said to Dina, okay, you can try this, but don't tell a soul. You can't have any signs, nothing. You know, your baristas can recommend it, but no signs up. And I want you to call me every night and let me know what the results are. Because if it doesn't work within 60 days, we're done. We're going to get out really quick. So anyway, so Dina figured out how to do it. She bought all the equipment, bought the supplies and everything, and she started selling this beverage. First week, she sold 50 drinks a day per store, way above her projection. The second week, she sold 70 drinks a day per store. I'm thinking to myself, Howard, you're a genius. You know, that was huge. We were averaging about $600,000 a year per store. This was going to lift our sales by probably 15 or 20% and margins by even more. So Dina and her Broom. So I brought her idea back to Seattle. I indicted Dina to come up with her two people, the store manager and the barista, and they brought all their supplies and all this stuff. And I called a meeting. This time Howard Schultz was in the meeting, and he was sitting right next to me. And they had a marketing, the guy that didn't want to do it was to the other side of me. And I had Dina bring in all the sample cups. Well, you would have thought I put an atomic bomb down in the middle of the table, because they had a marketing guy named George. He said, Howard, I told you we weren't going to do this. And he looked at Schultz and he said, Schultz, you tell Behar to stop this right away. And so, you know, I'm a non-emotional guy, as you can tell. And I had this piece of paper with all the results and what it was going to do for the company. And I looked at Howard Schultz and I said, Howard, look at these numbers. I said, you know, the customer wouldn't buy this from us if they didn't want it. Give me 90 days. And if you don't like it, if you just don't like the smell, we'll get out of it. And so, good guy Howard, he said, okay, you got 90 days. So, you know, I'll tell you, you know what the product is. It's Frappuccino. So Dina and her Broom became Frappuccino. It turned into a $4 billion business, both in store and then all the bottles of Frappuccino that we sold outside the stores. It became 20% of our sales at one time. Wow. I mean, who would have ever thought? Yeah. I could just as easily rolled my eyes and said, Dina, we're just not going to do that. Not taking the risk, you know, stayed with the status quo, not tried anything new. And, you know, what you find out after a while that your people, particularly the people in the field, they know what's going on. They know what to do. Now, I'm not pleading for anarchy here. You know, you can't have everybody doing everything, you know, all different all at the same time. And you have to have cohesion in your company and your organizations. But there's time to try things and time to do things. I only had one set of rules. Don't do anything illegal. Don't do anything immoral. Don't do anything unethical, and sure as hell don't poison anybody. If you could live by those rules, then we could try things. And I can't tell you how many times ideas have come up. Everything good came out of the field. Breakfast sandwiches came out of the field. Warming of pastries came out of the field. I mean, endless things that we did came out of the field. Almost everything that didn't work came out of the support center.
Well, Howard, that reminds me of your statement. People never give you what you expect.
They always, yeah, exactly. They don't, you know. I mean, they always give you what you don't expect, either on the plus side or on the downside. You know, somebody commits to, you know, getting a certain amount of houses sold this month, and they just blow past it. Yeah. You know, and on the other hand, there's somebody that, you know, this month they don't blow past it. You know, they're 10 houses short or whatever it happens to be. You know, and people are not perfect. You know, organizations are not perfect. So, you know, sometimes you get the good stuff, sometimes you get the bad stuff. But without both, you got to have the bad to get the good, right? You know, it doesn't always work out the way you want it. There are many products that we tried at Starbucks that didn't work. The first bottled beverage we tried was a product called Mazagran. It was kind of a coffee cola. We thought it was going to be huge. We did all sorts of research. It was a joint venture with Pepsi. It had a beautiful bottle. That thing, it was a disaster within 3 weeks. No, customers didn't like it, you know, and it didn't sell. And I have a bottle of that, you know, that when you put it in plexiglass, so to speak, only it's solid. I have a bottle of that on my desk to remind me, from great failure comes great success. Because then we introduced bottled Frappuccino.
So hold on, you've memorialized it in a plastic box.
Yeah, so I would never forget. I want to memorialize not only the great. I mean, it's easy to memorialize the great things.
The wins, yeah, exactly.
All the wins, you know. It's hard to memorialize the screw ups that you make. And so, the goal is not to understand that, you know, people are not perfect. Organizations are not perfect. You're going to have successes. You're going to have failures, and you got to be able to celebrate both.
So along this whole kind of culture concept and for our own owners and managers, could you touch a little bit on where training programs actually fail? So your feeling about how training programs go wrong.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to get rid of that word training. I think you train pets, you educate and develop human beings. And there's a huge difference, isn't there, when you think about it? Training says do what I do and everything will be okay. Education and development says, here are some thoughts about what I think you could be doing to improve your results. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
It's just a whole different mindset. And so I think we're in the job. Our jobs are to educate and develop human beings. And at Starbucks genre, it was about how to build relationships. You know, how to make a good cup of coffee, how to serve your people, and how to serve those human beings we call customers. You hear something I like to say all the time. We should get rid of that word customers. They're not customers. Customers imply that they have a dollar bill pasted to their forehead. And if I just say the right things to them, I'll get that dollar bill. When you think of people as human beings, you don't care whether you get that dollar bill because you're there to serve them. And it's amazing how when you're serving them, you get those dollar bills. They come from out of nowhere, but it's not manipulation, right? It's service. And so it's, I think Starbucks really never had a lot of training programs, or things like that. We had a great education development program that focused on how to work together as human beings, how to create a place that was productive for everybody, and how to build relationships. And that was really the most successful thing that we ever had. We had things where we taught people how to make coffee, but at the end of the day, it was more, showing people what to do and trying to get them to be better human beings in that journey. And that's what I think really works. Now, I know that in your business, there are sales training programs probably that you have, how to close the sale, how to build customer relation, all those kind of things. But at the end of the day, what really works in your business? I can tell you because I've been on the other end of it. It's about building relationships. It's about building relationships. And I want to do business with somebody that I trust. Particularly buying a house, if I'm spending $2-3 million, $5 million, whatever it is, $1,600,000, doesn't make any difference. If you're spending $400, still I want to do business with somebody that I trust, somebody that I believe cares about me more than they care about the commission. And that's really what your business is about. So that doesn't take a lot of training, does it? First of all, you better get the right people on board because that's what really makes the difference. And then you better always be talking to them about what's important. I probably gave the same speech at Starbucks 1,000 or more than 1,000 times. That Starbucks was about people, number one, and about coffee, number two. And the most important thing for us to focus on is growing our people as leadership and serving those human beings we call customers.
So why hasn't? So I know I'm kind of helping you out on this, but why hasn't Starbucks culture been duplicated by any other coffee company out there? Because obviously for us, we go to Starbucks because we know what to expect.
There are lots of people that have done good jobs. I can think of a lot of the small ones, Stumptown, Cherry Street in Seattle. There's been, Pete's Coffee, which was part of Starbucks at one time, that have done good jobs. I think that overall, details matter, right? Yeah. It's everything matters, from the napkins, from all the things you do, from how you communicate. I just think that we focus so much on the people side that it really just built our business where other people talk it. How many times have you heard a leader say people are our most important asset? But when push comes to shove, they don't mean it because they won't really give of themselves to help their people. They're always expecting to get from their people. It's the core of servant leadership. If you help your people get what they want out of life, you serve them first, then they'll help you get what you want in your organization. And there's no other way. If you're always focused on yourself, if you're always telling your people, you need to sell houses, and if they believe that all it is about you because you're going to get a bigger paycheck at the end of the year, they don't give a shit about you. Yeah. But if you focus on them, then they'll care about you. Not everybody. I understand this is not a universal 100% thing, but it's the majority of the time, and that's what makes organizations grow. And most companies don't do that.
I knew I could get your hackles up by mentioning the word
Yeah.
asset. So I had that in my list here.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. So in JLS, we have this phrase. It's actually a registered trademark called ultimate client relationship. I was struck on one of your interviews when you mentioned seeing customers with real eyes.
Yeah, with soft eyes.
Soft eyes. And with our changing industry, this has been increasingly more important to our ultimate client relationship, obviously, kind of the nuts and bolts of relationship. Tell us about seeing people with soft eyes.
Well, it's let's take it back to, I'll always come back to the human journey, families, and is the same as the business journey. So soft eyes means that you're thinking about who they are and what their needs are, right? That you're able to look at them and kind of tune into them. Your antenna are up about who they are, what their needs are, and you're not only listening with your ears, but you're listening with your eyes. You're paying attention to what's going on. And, if you go home at night and your significant other or spouse, you can tell whether they're in a good mood or a bad mood just by looking at them, can't you? Because you've been together a long time. You can look into their eyes and see what's going on. And that's what I mean by that. You need to be able to look in those people you're serving's eyes and see what's going on, as well as listening to them with your ears. But, most of the communication that goes on in this world is not talking. It's, what I mean? It's about seeing and feeling.
Yeah.
And that builds connections, and that builds relationships with each other, because they can feel that you care about them. If you come home and you see that your significant other is mad or something like that, you have to decide how you're going to respond to that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the same thing. And if you respond in the wrong way, what happens? It blows up, doesn't it?
Right.
It's the same thing with the people that you're serving, right? If you are paying attention with your eyes and your antenna, the human antenna that we have, right? You're gonna know kind of more how to respond, and they'll know that you're paying attention to them. They'll know that you care about them. That's the same way at home.
Powerful. Well, hey, so as an industry, we watch data like a hawk.
Sure.
It instructs us. It helps us instruct our clients. Where does data fail? Where do we put that aside?
Well, so I give you another. If I come home, if you go home one night and you, well, here, let me give it to you another way. So here's what I want. I'm going to set out a challenge for you guys about data. So tonight. I want you to go. Today, I want you to go home, on your way home, and stop and really buy a really nice bottle of wine. Luckily, the liquor stores are open, so it's okay. And also, not only that, I want you to pick up 2 really fine Rydell glasses. And when you get home tonight, I want you to say to your significant other or spouse, "Honey, I'm home. Hey, why don't you come on? I bought your favorite wine, and I got a couple of really good glasses that are really going to make the wine taste good. Let's sit down and just have a glass of wine." And as you sit down, you're having some small talk and you're talking, and then you say to her or to him, "Honey, this is your lucky day." Right?
I say that every night.
Yeah, today is going to be your annual performance review. Right? And, honey, there are some good things that you've done this past year, but, there's some things that you haven't done so good. And I'd like to talk about things. Well, as your ass is bouncing out the front door, right? And so let's say that your wife says, or your spouse says, "I'm unhappy in our relationship." Do you really need more data than that? Do you really need to go get 1,000 pieces of data, right, to determine they're unhappy? You better take that one piece of data and deal with it. So, data is important, but data sometimes can remove us from the human journey. It can remove us from really caring about that person, because they become a piece of data. You look at that person and you say, well, where do they fit in my model? Right? Where do they fit in my data model? And that just kills it. That kills any semblance of being able to build a relationship.
I love data can remove us from the human journey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's what happens. So, does your wife really or spouse really want a performance review? No. right? Because what happened? How do you build great relationships? You build great relationships by constant communication. It's every day, right? Reinforcing the kind of relationship that you want. And that's what you got to do. That's all the data you really need is, at the end of the day, you ask the question. So, my wife, we're just like any other couple. We've had our ups, we've had our downs, and I'm a goal-driven A-type personality. She's an oncology social worker. Her goals are about helping her clients survive to the next day and helping the families do what they do. So I always push and win, set some goals, stuff like that. So this was about 5 years ago. We're here in Palm Springs, and Lynn and I were having this conversation. I say, why don't you, I always say, you're such a good writer. Why don't you set a goal, write a book? And I'm telling you, she came after, I think she just had enough of my goals, and my trying to drive her. And she said, Howard, I know who you are, but I'm not that person. And we got in this blowout argument over all this stuff. And we went out to dinner that night and we hardly spoke. And, we've been married 35 years or so at the time. And we were looking at each other in the eyes, and kind of the conversation come up. Have we gone past each other in this relationship? And that night we both went to bed. I went to sleep on the couch. She went and slept on the bed. And, my mission in life is to nurture and inspire the human spirit every day, begin with myself first and then for others. And that means that, I have to take care of myself. Otherwise I can't help anybody else. And so I went to bed that night, and I woke up in the middle of the night about 3:00 in the morning with the blinding flash of the obvious. How was I nurturing and inspiring her spirit if all I was doing was focusing on myself about what I thought was important? Set goals. She should write a book because I'd written a couple of books, all that stuff. Yeah. And so I came and I woke her up and I said, honey, I am sorry. I was totally wrong. I get it. I was not nurturing and inspiring your spirit. I was trying to nurture and inspire my own spirit. And so, we worked through that time, but at the end of the day, it was because I wasn't listening.
Howard, I just appreciate that vulnerability and sharing that. We've all, the couch. The president of Starbucks slept on the couch. Did everyone hear that? Wow, just to be able to kind of wake her up and talk with her like that. And well, that's obviously not a data-driven decision. No, that's not a data-driven decision, is it? It's a human decision. It's being in touch with yourself, which I had to get to, right? Waking up, it's not being able to sleep and going over and over again in my head, what was going on here? Are we going to really get divorced? What's going to happen? And then realizing how wrong I was and how off I'd gotten. I should have figured it out sooner. Yeah. But I didn't. But I fixed it. And that's what we have to do. That's what happens when relationships get off. But it isn't about the data. Now, let me back up. Let me say that yes, Starbucks used data. Howard Schultz hated it. He didn't want that kind of data. He wanted to feel it, touch it, and I didn't lead all the way there, but I would go talk to customers, when I walked into a store, I was always going to talk to 3, 4, 5 customers, and I was going to talk to the baristas. And I always ask the same questions. What are we doing right? What can we do better? That was the questions I'd ask, after a while, feeling that getting that data firsthand, there's nothing like it. A spreadsheet just doesn't work. You don't get any feelings. You don't get what's in people's eyes on a spreadsheet. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah. Well, so, Nick or Aaron, do you have a question out there?
Yeah, Howard, I actually have one from Julie on Facebook. She was wondering if you ever circle around a few years later with a previously failed idea and then reintroduce it later to see if it would work now. She was saying sometimes people may not be super receptive to the idea, but now it could be a tremendous success. Have you guys, did you do anything of the sort at Starbucks?
Absolutely. Timing is everything. Sometimes you have something that you think is really going to be great, and it just doesn't work. And so, I always believe, some things, you blow out, that don't fit with what you're trying to do. But I kept those ideas. I used to have on my wall in my office. This is before I was really, I'm still not proficient on computers, but so I had a wall that was about 20 feet long. It was divided into 40%, 40%, 20%. One was let's see, it was 100%. So it was 40 or 50, 50, 30, 20. Okay. And on the 50% wall, sides of the wall, there were orange cards, 3x5 cards. And anybody could come in my office anytime and put up an idea on that wall. And then we had headings, on service, on products, whatever it happened to be. And they could put their idea anywhere. They didn't have to permission, they just put it up. Then the middle cards were the pink cards. Those were ideas that had migrated from the orange cards. Any idea, there was a little funny, well, these might have some merit. And then the third part of the wall was white cards. These were things that, yes, we wanted to go forward with those things. And so every 2 or 3 weeks, we'd get the whole team together and we'd look at all the cards again. We'd go through all the cards again. And sometimes there'd be a card that was on that wall and stayed in pink forever. And then all of a sudden, even a year, I remember a couple of cards stayed on that wall for a year and nobody thought it was right. And all of a sudden we said, hey, maybe the time is right to do that. And we pulled that card off. You know what one was? It was, the cards that you use, the Starbucks cards. Yeah, most of you or some of you must have those Starbucks cards. You come in, maybe most of you have it on the phone now, but the Starbucks cards that you carry in your wallet and you go in and you load money onto them. That was on a wall for 5 years. Wow. You know why it never came off? The technology was never there to do it. And the cost was so great. That idea came from, I was on a trip to Israel and I had a friend that was in the Israeli Air Force. He flew helicopters. And he took me onto the base and he took me, I couldn't go for a ride in his helicopter, but he took me up to his helicopter. He had this card with a chip in it. And this card allowed him to get into the helicopter, start the helicopter. The same card allowed him to go into the stores on the base to charge product. And I brought that card back and I gave it to somebody in technology and they went and looked at it. And that card cost $8.50. And we looked at it and said, there's no way we can make this work. And so finally, those cards started to come, the price of those cards started to come down, the chips got better. And it took 5 years on that wall before it was introduced. Yes, definitely yes. Your answer is yes. Some things just aren't at the right time.
Nick, awesome. Do you have a question on the other
I have a couple for Howard. Howard, what is the most impactful lesson you have learned in your career?
Impactful lesson that I've learned in my career. Well, it's a personal lesson that, it's an old saying, if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there. So I, at a very early age, from somebody that was my most important mentor in life, guy from Seattle, a guy that helped me when I was in my mid-20s. He was the one that gave me that book by Robert Greenleaf, The Leader as Servant. And it was a little pamphlet. I don't have one here. I have them in Seattle, but it basically had a story in it about a Sherpa that was the guide taking people up this mountain. He was actually the leader, but he was actually also a servant. And I've read that booklet or that pamphlet 100 times. And that began my journey on servant leadership. And from then on, I first had to learn about myself. What were my values? Who was Howard as a human being? And what did I stand for? What mattered to me? And then how did I turn those things into action? How did I turn that into creating a picture of Howard? I have it. Let's see. I think I have one right here somewhere. I have it. Let me get it out. Where is it? Well, I can't seem to find it. But I have this sheet of paper that I carry with me all the time. And it's Howard, a picture of Howard in 50 words or less. On it has my 8 core values. Then it has my mission statement. And then it has my 6 P's, which are my kind of principles for life. And I'll give you those real quickly. The first P is everything I do in life has to have a purpose greater than myself. It can't be about me. It has to be something that's bigger than me. The second P is passion. If I have a purpose greater than myself, then I damn well better be passionate about it. Scream it from the highest mountaintops. Tell everybody what you're doing, right? The third P is persistence. That there is nothing in life where there are going to be rocks in the river no matter where you go. And you got to be persistent about getting through, under, over, or around those rocks, or decide you're going to take a different path. But you got to be persistent. Every entrepreneur that I've ever known, you could describe them with that one word. They're all persistent. The fourth P is patience. You think that persistence and patience are the opposite of each other. They're not. Sometimes things don't come in the time frame that you want them to come. Sometimes it takes a little more time. And you have to have the patience to get through those things. You have to have patience with your people, and the most important person you have to have patience with is yourself. The fifth P is performance. At the end of the day, performance matters. No excuses to yourself or others relieves you of the responsibility to perform. If you make a commitment to do something, then that's a commitment, unless you tell somebody, I'm not going to get that done, I'm not going to make those results this month, and here's where I am and here's why. But performance matters. It matters in all parts of life. It matters at home. If your job is to take the garbage out, then you damn well better take the garbage out. And believe me, I know when I haven't done it, because I hear from across the house, Howard, and I know that means that I've forgotten the garbage.
You don't even have to, you just have to hear your name.
I know exactly what it is. And performance counts at work, right? And performance, if you make a commitment to your people, then that's a commitment, right? And I remember one time when I was a young leader, and after I'd gone through a lot of the servant leadership stuff, I had committed to my people. I was, in those days I was in the furniture business, and I had a sales team, and I'd made a commitment to that sales team that if we achieved a certain result, that we would all go out for a huge dinner at Canlis. Not an inexpensive dinner. Well, that was going to cost a lot of money. And so I went to set it up, and the guy who was the chairman of the board said, I'm not approving that, or CEO, well, I'm not approving that. And so I was stuck. So it had to come out of my pocket because I'd made a commitment. Because, a deal's a deal, and performance is performance. It's not just about what your people give you, it's about what you give them. And it's the same in your families.
Well, hey, so thank you for that. On technology, is the whole people first thing, and technology even compatible?
Well, I think we're seeing, just by what we're doing right now, who would have thought of this 5 years ago, that we could do this? Maybe somebody did, I don't know. But, every week we have a cocktail party with 4 of our friends. And at the beginning, it was a little bit uncomfortable. How do we make this work? Now we've learned, when we see when people want to say something, we've learned, we watch their eyes, we talk with each other, we talk about the world's problems, we talk about our family issues, we talk about life in general. It's amazing what's happened. Is it the same of being next to each other, or, being able to touch somebody? Not quite, but pretty damn close, particularly if you pay attention. If all you're doing is just listening, if that's all it is, no, you can't. You got to be able to see. And you got to be able to look at somebody's eyes. Like, Jim, I can see your eyes moving. You can see my eyes moving. You can see my hands. I talk a lot with my hands. You can see it. Erin's coughing. I can see that she's, and so we can do that. So don't make an excuse out of not being able to touch everybody personally. Use the tools that you have and just use them more. Make it a strength, not a weakness. Think about it differently. You can find a way to make it work. And I think I was worried about, I'm worried about some technology. I worried about the technology that gets us false, things on the internet and does things that I don't think are productive. And tweeting by our president, I don't think that's been very productive. That's use of technology. but facing somebody eye to eye on Zoom, I think is pretty damn good compared to not being able to see them at all.
One of the
Hey, Howard.
Yeah.
We have someone was asking, what is number 6? You had listed a number of them, and they were asking what was number 6 in your list.
Number 6. I was waiting for somebody to ask.
Nice
It's
job.
people. It's people. Everything we do is about people.
We should have known that.
Yes.
Yeah, you should have. Yeah, it's
So,
everything we do. There is no reason that anybody is put on this earth except to serve another human being. Doctor, lawyer, real estate rep, barista, engineer, architect. Doesn't make any difference what you do in life. If you're making widgets, you're here to serve others, and your job is to figure out how you do that and how you can connect yourself to the people that you're serving. You think about it. A widget maker makes widgets. It goes into a printing press that gets sold to a publisher. The publisher presents publishes a newspaper or magazine, gets delivered to people's homes to entertain or inform them. Right? There's a connection, isn't there? Serving others. And we forget that. I hear people all the time saying, geez, I'm burned out, or, I'm bored. And it's usually because they have forgotten why they're put on this earth, which is to serve others and how to make that connection. Sure, we get tired in the things we do. We get worn out. We get frustrated, all those things. But you'll never burn out or get bored as long as you stay focused on what you're put on this earth to do, which is to serve others.
I have another question from Facebook. So Moses asked, how did you handle seasons of adversity like we're in now with COVID-19?
How did we handle it? Well, we've had lots of adversity. During the 2007, 2008, when business went down by 20, 30%, I don't think we did a very good job of it. Howard he thought the problem was operations when the sales volume started to go down. The first places we felt it were in Riverside, parts of Riverside, Southern California. Riverside County was a big one, and parts of Texas. And sales just went off the charts down. And Howard thought the issue was the people and operations. And so you remember when we shut down all the stores for a day to re-educate our people? Yes. That was a disaster, because what did we do? We basically took the confidence away from our people that we believed in them. And they came up with 8 ideas that they were going to set into motion in the stores. Not one of them lasted over a month, because it wasn't the problem. And then we laid off a bunch of people. We laid off people in the support center that had been with the company long periods of time. We weren't losing money. We were still making lots of money. We still had plenty of cash in the bank. And yet what happened was we were going to close 600 stores. So we were going to lay off people in those stores, no question about it. Maybe some people in store development because we weren't growing as fast. But we lost so many people that had the culture of the company in their hearts and souls. And we broke trust with our people. So that's a way that we handled it that wasn't so good. Now, I look at these times. I'm not there, but I'll tell you, I've been in contact almost every day with people in the company, and they are so happy with what's happened. And they so much believe that the company cares about them, because what do we do? Didn't lay off anybody. We figured out how to handle it. We gave people, these are all the way to baristas. We extended, we paid them even if they didn't come to work. Everybody kept their health insurance. And we're burning through some of our cash. I say we still, but we're burning through a lot of our cash, but we had cash in the bank to be able to do it, because we were planning on, we didn't know this was going to happen, but we wanted to always be ahead of the curve. And so we were going to buy back a bunch of stock, and they didn't do that, but because they wanted the money to be able to help the people. So how do you think the people are feeling now? I was on a call yesterday with 100 Starbucks people there, and it was one positive comment after another about how they're feeling about the company right now. Now, how fast do you think we're going to come back? They're going to open, by the end of the month, 85% of the stores will be reopened again. Now, all the drive-thrus continue to be open. And now you're not going to be able to go in and sit. But because of what we learned in China, because we had the problem much earlier. We had to close 1,900 stores in China, and we learned how to handle it. We're going to be able to get through it. Will we still have the same volume that we had before? No, but we'll be able to survive and we'll still make money. And probably by the end of next month, all the stores will be back open again. And our people have committed to doing it. Now there's some people that are afraid and don't want to, and we understand that. We're going to stand behind them. So two different responses to big issues. And I can tell you that this is the one that's going to work. We put so many rocks on the trust side of the table. On a scale, it's going to make a huge difference to performance. Servant leadership. We didn't practice servant leadership before.
Hey, Howard, what's your favorite Starbucks menu item?
For food, I like the egg white sous vides, and I like the reduced fat turkey bacon sandwich in the morning. Those are my two go-to things.
Sports team.
What?
Sports
my
team.
Favorite sports team, the Huskies. Football.
How about Sonics?
Don't get me going on that. I told Schultz when he bought the Sonics, I said, no good will come from this. I was right. I was quoted on the PI and he really got mad at me. But, it was true because, we'd been through that. Retailers shouldn't own sports teams because it always reflects and boils over onto you and onto the business, And Howard thought he was going to win a championship within 3 years, He's that kind of guy, he's a true believer. And then he got in this deal with Gary Payton and then all the stuff, and he decided he didn't want anything to do with it, and so he sold it, and so he's paid the price. My nephew just hates him because of that. He doesn't even know how many hates him.
How about favorite hero, or who's your hero?
Oh, my hero. Favorite hero. My wife, I guess, would be, because she was diagnosed with bladder cancer, and at the same time, I got really sick with a blood virus. And I'm going through it. She's going through it. I'm in the hospital for 2 weeks and near death. And she's dealing with her bladder cancer. And you wouldn't even have known it. I was supposed to be taking care of her. And here she was taking care of me. And she's just this tough egg, she knew all the things that could happen with bladder cancer because that was her field. She knew everything that could happen. And yet she's just tough. And she just stood up there, and she's my hero.
Is your hero your best friend?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is retirement even possible?
Retirement? I retired once when I was 59. That didn't work too well. I thought I'll do consulting, I'll be on boards, all that stuff, and I'll still be on the Starbucks board. So fortunately, or unfortunately, September 11th came, and the guy that was the president of North America resigned abruptly, and a guy named Paul Davis. And I don't know why he left, but he did. So I get a call the Saturday after September 11th, and it was Orrin and Howard, and asked me if I could come back for a couple of months. And I said, sure, I can, come into operations. I was still on the board, but being on the board, you don't know what's really going on in the company. You think you do, but you don't. And so I agreed to do, and I ended up staying there for 2 years, and then finally I got ready for retirement, but I didn't retire. I stayed on boards, and my mission statement says that I can't retire. I want to nurture and inspire the human spirit every day. That means I got to do something every day to help other human being. Sometimes it's as small as picking up a piece of paper or a cup off the street. When I live in Seattle, luckily I live in a condo downtown. Luckily there's an endless supply of inventory to pick up. So, that's a little thing that you do for other people, but, hopefully I get to do bigger things. Sometimes I do. But the goal is to live my life according to my mission, and that means no retirement.
So for my last question, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
So I'm sure you have some opinions about the real estate industry and where it's been and then where it's going. So what are the opportunities you see out there for our owners, our agents, our brokers, as we continue to go through such rapid changes and an advancement in the industry?
Well, I don't know your industry, I don't know your industry that well, but I mean, to me, it looks like even during these downtimes, things are going pretty well for everybody. I see what's happening in Palm Springs, and Jesus, there's hardly nothing on the market hardly down here. And it's the same way in Seattle. And so sales are being made, the low interest rates. I mean, if there was ever time to buy a house, to take out a loan, this is it. And so I think, I mean, I don't know what your results are, but it seems to me that that the industry is pretty good right now and people are selling houses. I don't know how it's going to change. I think technology is going to play a big role. I mean, I can go on. I know, if I wanted to know what was for sale when I was buying houses, I had to go into the office, right? And I had to get that book or whatever it was that you guys had to see what houses for sale. I can go on anytime I want for any city in the country and see what's for sale. And I can compare houses. I can compare. And so I get a lot of information. And, I just, like I told you, I just refinanced those. I had 3 little mortgages, and I put them all together and I got a 2.375 mortgage, 2.375. I never saw the person that gave it to me. Everything has been done on the internet by me signing on the internet. I don't know the person, right? But I got it done. It was, I have a Schwab account, so it was through Quicken, right?
Yeah, Quicken Loan.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. So I think you got to somehow get ready for that. I don't know what that means to you. I always believe, though, that there's going to be a significant role for human touch, for that piece of trust, when you go out to visit a home and that kind of help. And you gotta remain true to that. That's what will keep you alive. That's the only thing that will keep Starbucks alive. You ever break with that, you're dead meat, no matter how good the technology is.
Well, Howard, how can people dial into more of your resources or find out more about you?
Me? What do you want? I've given you everything I know about myself.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to talk to anybody at any time. My email address is hb@howardbehar.com, and my cell phone is 206-972-7776. So something you want to talk about, you have a question about something, I'm happy to talk. And I'm slow on my emails sometimes, but I always answer them, and I always answer myself. I mean, I'll always call you back. So
thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, Howard, on behalf of the entire John L. Scott family, Lennox Scott, and our Facebook Friday team, we thank you for your time and sharing with us your valuable insights and seasoned advice.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. You allowed me to live my mission today. Mm-hmm. And I love the Starbucks logo behind Rob Wolf.
Yes,
thanks, Rob.
Good catch. And we love Rob Wolf. So a special thank you to each of you who have joined us today. And please join us next time as we interview Chris Heller, the past president of Keller Williams and current chief real estate officer for Ojo Labs. He'll be talking about technology in our industry, the new norm post-COVID-19. For questions about John L. Scott or John L. Scott franchise opportunities, don't hesitate to reach out to me at jamescolburn@johnlscott.com. We wish each of you a wonderful weekend that's profitable and prosperous and purpose-driven, and as we all play our role in living life as a contribution. So thanks to each of you for joining us today. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you.
And put some SPF 100 on today as you go out.
Okay, I will. All right, take care.
Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Thank you.